spot on.
Hey, Rush Nation. Welcome to the 5 Yard IDP pod with me, Nath Davis. Today we will be reviewing week 14 and getting you ready for week 15. Hopefully you have all had a good week and made your fantasy playoffs. And we are here with your IDP week 15 starters. A good weekend of football, especially for the neutral, with some interesting players making headlines. If you don't already, please tune into our flagship show, our dynasty show, college and DFS shows, as they will help you now and in the future bring in those ships. How are you, Mr. Veal? Good week?
Yeah, very good. I am properly over my little bout of COVID now and feeling a lot better. Had a much better fantasy weekend as well. So into the playoffs in both of our main IDP leagues, and hopefully in a week's time, if all goes according to plan in round one in one of the leagues, then I meet you after your bye week, which
that's in the Ray Lewis, the Ray Lewis.
Yeah, so I could be looking forward to that. So, but got to get through this week first. So
exactly, mate.
Yeah, one week at a time.
Okie dokie. Right. So I've got to do the bits that I've got to do, and that is about our sponsors. This pod and others we do are supported by Manscaped. And as I said, they are our sponsors. As you all know, Manscaped are the market leader in men's below the waist grooming. They've just released the Lawnmower 4.0, which is a fantastic bit of kit. One of the best things about it is the skin safe technology, so you get no nicks on your bits. And you can receive 20% off with the code 5yard at manscaped.com. And it is really a game changer in that area, and you're missing out if you don't have one. As I said, you can get 20% off with the code 5yard at manscaped.com. There's also free worldwide shipping, so sort yourself out and get involved. Okie dokie. So, just to let you all know before we carry on too much further, this is being recorded on Wednesday, and as you will all know, the picture is changing by the minute regarding injuries, COVID. I mean, so anything that we miss, don't shoot us. We're trying to keep up with it, but honestly,
it's not easy.
The phones, they're like, it's just flashing up all the time at this moment in time. The poor old Browns. I don't think they got anybody left. But anyway,
check on that game.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway, let's go. So, Bren, let's kick it off with yourself and the Thursday night game, which is the Chiefs at the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely. So another big primetime game. They seem to be coming thick and fast at the moment. So big Thursday night matchup in the AFC West. Both teams coming off the back of week 14 wins, keeping everything nice and tight at the top of the division. Chiefs off the back of a comfortable 48-9 win over the Raiders, who pretty much gave up after the first turnover. Top performers for the Chiefs the previous week. A couple of players we probably almost certainly haven't mentioned before. Corner Mike Hughes. Don't think he's been on the radar much. Had a standout game of the season with 28 points, a couple of forced fumbles, and that IDP touchdown as well. DL Alex Okafor, 16 points. And then one of the usual suspects, the old honey badger, Tyrell Matthew, had a sort of decent day at the office as well, 19.5 points, including a pick and a forced fumble recovery. Chargers, as I say, had a win as well. Bit of a tougher one, sort of. 37-21 over the Giants on Sunday. Their top performers, again, a couple of players who I don't think have cropped up too much in previous weeks. We've got corner Mike Davis, 20.5 points. Mainly off the back of passes defended, to be fair. And then also in the DL, Justin Jones went for 20 points, including a sack and a fumble recovery. Elsewhere, again, top performers in the linebacker core, the usual suspects, Joey Bosa, Xavier White, picked up 13.5, 12.5 points respectively. In terms of the matchup this week, Both QBs seem to be getting back into the groove again. So I'd expect plenty of sort of passing plays from both offenses. But bear in mind, both Herbert and Mahomes are into double figures for picks this season. So you could potentially look at a couple of the DBs in this game. I've highlighted Mike Hughes for Kansas, who's on waivers. But at cornerback, sort of L'Jarius Sneed is back. So this is the week. I mean, as I say, he's back this week. He's got to be the pick at corner, to be honest, with his sort of tackle numbers. Safety-wise, Derwin James, who's due back for the Chargers this week. He's over sort of 100 tackles on the season. Also, sticking with the Chargers, I'm going to sort of highlight their linebackers. I know Nick Bolton for the Chiefs does get a lot of praise, but he's got sort of 88 tackles and no sacks on the season. However, for the Chargers, you've got the likes of Xavier White, who's up to 106 on the season, and then you've got Joey Bosa with 8.5 sacks. So with Bosa, you're banking on, and we've done this before with sort of linebacker cores. Bosa, you're banking on the big sack plays because his tackle numbers actually, by comparison, are pretty poor. So I think in a tough divisional clash like this, I'd be leaning towards White, as being the preference, really. If you're looking for any outside picks on the waivers this matchup, I might just lean towards DL Linval Joseph. He's back off COVID protocol this week. He's a top tackle in DL for the Chargers at the moment with 46 off 10 games, which is also better than any of the stats on the Chiefs DL, to be honest. So Joseph might have a busy matchup. There is a possibility the Chiefs will look to keep the ball on the ground a bit to really test this Chargers run defense, which frankly is still ranked 31st in the league. So there is a good chance that the front line for the Chargers could be busy. In the game as a whole, I'm going to go for the Chargers this week. I think Herbert is looking good again. He got some good pass protection on Sunday, albeit against the Giants. Okay, but if they can repeat that, I think he could cause this Chiefs sort of pass defense some issues. They're still ranked sort of 26th in the league, against the pass. So also, if it does turn into a bit of a shootout, the Chargers still have a pass defense that's ranking in the top 4. So Herbert's looking good. I mean, some of those bombs he's pulled out in the last couple of weeks in sort of, in important sort of situations. It could go either way, but I've just got a feeling that the Chargers might take this one. Could make things interesting, but I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, my thoughts are very much like what you mentioned about obviously difference between obviously Bosa, people like and Xavier White and all them lot. It's just the difference between obviously Bosa plays off the edge, and obviously his sack numbers, his tackle numbers will never be anything like those of the middle linebackers. But going on to and you mentioned Nick Bolton. I think Nick Bolton's pretty much lost his job. Well, I'm not saying lost his job. He's split in the reps seem to really split now. It's virtually straight down the middle with him and Willie Gay. If anything, Willie Gay seems to be leading it. For the game, I don't know. I see. I've got the Chiefs winning it, and mainly because I just think the Chiefs D is really on fire at this moment in time. Chris Jones, Marvin Ingram are getting their pressures. I know it would be a different kind of game, this one. A lot does seem to hinge for me on the fitness and the health of Eckler, because if the Chargers can't properly run the ball, I don't know what the status is currently of Keenan Allen as well. Not sure on that. Not sure whether he's in or whether he's out. It's a funny one with him. But again, if those two are not 100%, I've got a side Chiefs, especially with the D starting to fire. Because it was poor at the start of the year, and now it looks all right. So yeah, that'll be my call. But yeah, it's a tough one to call, mind.
Mm-hmm.
So where am I?
Where are you off to?
Saturday games we got, haven't we? Got Saturday games. What is going on? What is going on? Tell us Christmas.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I got the Pats at the Colts. So if we start with the Pats, they're coming off a week 14 bye week. So I'll go into what the Pats did in week 13. In terrible conditions, they beat the Bills in probably what I would say would be their most important game of the season yet. It wasn't a pretty game. Watching it back, it was a Bill Belichick masterclass of doing what you need to do to get the job done and get the hell out of there. But defensively, Matt Judon got himself another sack. He'd taken his total up to 12.5 on the season. Adrian Phillips scored well, but unfortunately, he's picked up a bit of a knee injury. So he's questionable at this moment in time for this week. My man, Carl Duggar, he missed the game due to COVID, but he's available at this moment in time this week, unless he gets it again. Unbelievable. But it wasn't a big week of IDP scoring for the Pats, who just, like I said before, they just got the job done and they got out with a win. There wasn't much score offensively, defensively. It was very much I think they passed it something stupid like 3 times or so. I can't remember what the actual stats were on the pass on the offense side of things, but it was due to the weather more than anything. But this is a better IDP matchup for them. And I expect an uptick on points, especially at the linebacker position, as the difference between the Bills and the Colts. The Bills, they're not running the ball. And if they are, they're not running it very well. But this would be different because this would be a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor. So expect that middle of the field to be absolutely flat out. Flipping it over to the Colts, they're also coming off a week 14 bye. So again, I'll talk about their week 13 performance, which was a shutout win against the Texans. Mohammed top score with a couple of sacks, and the unknown Kiboko Tyrell also got 2 up front. So yeah, 2 real, not the biggest names, doing all right there. Kenny Moore had a great game with an interception and a forced fumble and continues to score well on the season. For me, in this week's matchup, I like the linebackers from the Colts as well. I expect big scores from both Darius Leonard and Bobby Okereke. But for me, everyone knows I'm high on the Pats, but this is a tough one and my game of the week. But I do feel that the Pats will win it. And this is why. I just feel that they out of the two, I think they've got the chance to get the pressure on Wentz and to make that big turnover play, which I think that's the way it will go. So for me, I would want Judon, Duggar, JC Jackson in my team. But for me on the Colts side, because I think the Pats will be disciplined. I would only go mainly for the 2 linebackers for me on this one. So Okereke and Leonard, you're not going to get them, but if you've got them, you've got to play them. But yeah, the big play, I see it coming from the Pats. What's your thoughts on that, Bren?
Yeah, I don't think the Pats defense doesn't look like sort of rolling over anytime soon. They just seem to be, just consistently good from week to week. I'm getting a little bit bored of talking about them. They're just good, really. There's not much else you can say about it. I don't know. I think
maybe I'm slightly underplaying the Colts pass game because Pittman played well the other week. Maybe it's a bit harsh on them to say they're sort of like a one-trick pony, but
they are heavily reliant on it. And I think if the Pats defense can disrupt that run game, which is easier said than done against sort of JT, but the Colts passing game inconsistent. That would be my, they don't.
Yeah,
I think they have been better, but they're quite capable of, especially against this defense, sort of struggling to, to find those.
It is a tough one to call because offensively, the Pats they'll run the hell out of the ball as well, but then you've got like the 2 tight end sets. You've got I don't know. I just feel for me that maybe the Pats are just edge it. Maybe
I think if it goes true to form, which is easier said than done this season. But I'd go with the Pats. I think they're looking to sort of cruise into the postseason now. But this game won't be it won't be a cruise. It won't be a walk in the park. But yeah, I think they've got enough tools to get the job done. Okay.
So, what are you doing? You got Vegas at Cleveland, but you're skipping that one.
Yeah, well, I'll explain. Yeah, I am skipping over it. I will explain very briefly why. Nathan's already touched on the fact that I mean, this game. All joking aside, we talked about it before we came on air. It may not happen with the state the Brownies are in at the moment, but I was likely to, before all the news broke anyway, it was one I was going to sort of gloss over a little bit anyway. The Browns have they worry me. They're inconsistent. So that was one reason. And I've already touched on the Raiders. The Raiders have rolled over. This season's done. You know, they're not really going to offer anything.
They've been through a lot.
They have, and I think, yeah, and I'm not belittling that. It is a shame because I've always had a soft spot for the Raiders, as you well know. But what started out as a really promising season for them has just been completely derailed by the whole Grudon thing, and then, well, Henry Ruggs, and it's just become a little bit of a. I think they just want to put this season to bed, and go again next year. So, which is a shame, really. But
yeah, I think they can still take a few positives from it. I think the sort of uprising offensive Renfro has got to be one of them. I mean, that kid, PPR wise, geez, he is racking up the points.
And then there's still the core of a decent team there. Obviously they're going to have to. They've got to decide what they're going to do with new head coach position. You've still got the likes of Darren Waller in the team. So, it'd be interesting to see what moves they make in the off season. But for me, as an IDP game, there were just too many unknowns there to really make any.
Well, we decided early on, didn't we, that we were going to do 5 each on this week as well, because
it's just a bit much for everyone to take in otherwise.
Yeah, playoff wise as well. There's ones that we want to kind of concentrate and make sure we get them mentioned. So we're skipping that one. So going over to the Sunday games, and Arizona at Detroit is one of yours.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine, mate. So Cards at Lions. Both teams come into Sunday's game off respective losses. Lions got rolled over. They're back to form. Got rolled over by Denver 38-10. The Cards, which I didn't expect or predict, lost the big Monday night clash to the Rams. So top week 14 performers for the teams. Detroit at linebacker, Josh Woods had a very good game, 27 points, all tackles. And DL, Aleem McNeil, 14.5 points, including a sack. That was kind of it, really.
I love the Lions are just playing players that nobody's heard of a lot of the time. It's like, you're like,
well, in the first, I mean, what we've done, two and a bit games, and we're mentioning an awful. This is just indicative of where the rosters are at the moment. I'm sitting there, these are my own notes. I'm going, is that the right name? Is that actually the person I'm meaning to talk about? Go on.
Just to quickly digress, because it was like so running backs, because obviously Swift was out, Williams was out. So straight away there was I can't remember what his name is. There's a couple of running backs that we'd seen this year that people all went and snapped up, boom, waiver wire going crazy, and then some guy, what's his name, Reynolds or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Started to Craig Reynolds. That was it, Craig Reynolds. I was like, just bang, snap after snap, and people going, what? He's trending up now.
Neil Reynolds' younger brother.
Right.
So nothing apart from Josh Woods. Safety Will Harris for Detroit scored reasonably well, 13 points. Over to the Cards. Jordan Phillips had a reasonable game, 16.5 points, including a sack. Elsewhere in the DL, Zach Allen scored the same and a sack. Chandler Jones went for double figures, sort of 12 points. So nothing massive there. But, excuse me, in terms of the matchup, and there might be a few people listening going, well, you've skipped, you're going to skip a few games. Why highlight this? Well, I know it's a lopsided matchup, but I'm looking at it from one of those IDP scenarios for me where, I'd be loading up on the Cards. The Lions are sort of, have indicated that they've just had that freak win against the Vikings, maybe. And the win against the Vikings aside, in week 30, this is still a poor Lions team it's an awful side. The top two Cards DLs from last week's performances, both on waivers. And for me, it's Zach Allen. If you are a little short at DL this week, and we're not going to bang on about it too much, I hope, but people are going to be short with the current state of play. He's got decent tackle numbers, 3 sacks off just 11 games this season. And Jared Goff has gone for 32 sacks this season. So, there might be a bit of value, a bit of a punt on sort of the DL there. At linebacker, you could take a waiver punt on the card sack leader Marcus Golden at the moment. He's 10 on the season, and again, he'll fancy his chances against this Lions offense. And then obviously you've got your safe bets, you've got your tackle leader, sort of Jordan Hicks. You've got Chandler Jones with 9.5 sacks off 11 games. And at DB, you've got your safeties, Jalen Thompson with 94 tackles, Buda Baker with 74. From the corners, Byron Murphy, someone we have mentioned before. He could be worth a waiver look this game. 4 picks on the season, but Goff's interception numbers, to be fair to him, and I've mentioned it before, aren't that bad for such a poor side. So I'd probably be sticking with the safeties, because they are sort of going to be involved. Good tackle numbers, as I said. For the Lions, I am actually, and this is possibly because of where everything is at the moment, I am actually going to pick out a couple of players for Detroit as fancy sort of, rosters start to look a little banged up. COVID protocols seem to be, very much on the increase. But, also that in this matchup, the Lions D should have a busy day of it. They are going to be on the field quite a bit. Let's not kid ourselves. Safety Will Harris is the Lions' top tackling DB. Tracy Walker is out, still under COVID protocol. So Harris, comes into this game as a tackle leader. But I would keep an eye on Walker close to the weekend. There seems to be a little bit of confusion from what I've read about when he's eligible to return. And if he's cleared, then he would be the first choice. But Lions players, they will be available. Also at linebacker, Lions top tackler, Alex Anzalone, he's currently listed sort of day to day with an ankle knock. Word is he will play on Sunday. He's had a good season, to be fair, in a crap team, let's be honest. But he's been good double figures. Well, I'm looking at the fantasy numbers. He's been good for double figures in fantasy over sort of half his games. And again, he should be a busy boy against his Cards team on Sunday. But okay, it's a bit of a stretch. But I just thought as the season winds up, it'd just be nice to try and highlight a couple of Lions players. And again, people are going to be short going into the playoffs, as I said. Some of the games that Cards win it, really. But yeah, there's a few out there on the waivers from both sides. Primarily the Cards, to be honest, but yeah.
I've got obviously the Cards, and I agree with you on the big playability, and that is where you got to look at it a little bit, especially if you made the playoffs. You're up against somebody you're not expected to win, and you're looking at this kind of big playability. Sometimes it is that thing where you go, I might as well. I could chuck out. I don't know, somebody who's got a consistent tackle floor and go for Golden, put in Marcus Golden at linebacker or somebody like that, because he gets 2 or 3 sacks and he's into big figure, and it's one of those calls that it's difficult to make, but you might as well. Sometimes it's like if you're gonna go down fighting. You know what I mean? That's my thing. Where when I look at it and go, I'm not gonna. If I just play it safe, I'm not gonna win it. So I might as well just go sod it. You know what I mean? Justin Fields at QB, sod it. No, I'm joking. But I'm just saying. You could make a big call like that, and then at least you've gone out and I had a gamble. If it come off, boom, there you go. But yeah, something to bear in mind. So where am I? I am going Carolina at Buffalo. So start with the Panthers for me. Wasn't a great defensive performance by the Panthers in Week 14 against the Falcons. I watched this game twice. How sad is that? And it wasn't any better the second time. But it was surprising that for me that the Panthers, they couldn't. It's not a bad run defense or stats wise. It hasn't been too bad, and they couldn't stop Cordell Patterson. and they couldn't stop Mike Davis from running the ball. And then in the passing game, they struggled with Kyle Pitts and they struggled with Russell Gage at times. Because of this, I really worry for them against the Bills in Buffalo. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. Let's just go. So IDP points wise in week 14 for the for the Panthers at the Falcons. The three players who scored well are three who will no doubt be on the radar in the offseason. They are Shaq Thompson, Jeremy Chin, and Big Derek Brown. Shaq Thompson, he scored 19.5 points with 11 tackles and a tackle for a loss. Shaq Thompson is a funny one. Slightly frustrating for me. He has games, big games, absolute huge games, and then other games not. And in his position, you expect him to be a bit more consistent. I don't know whether it's where you use him, but also he doesn't fall into the same bracket as a Roquan Smith. But if you looked at his figures last year and the year before, he's in that same ballpark. So it's a funny one anyway, but I'm looking forward to ranking him next year, and we'll see what Murph and others have got to say about him and where they put him. But it's going to be interesting. So Shaq had a good week. Jeremy Chin, he was the second top scorer. He scored 17 points with 13 tackles, which is great, 13 tackles, and he has been pretty consistent points-wise since week 6. And again, another one that I'm looking forward to rank because he's had a lot of conversations about Chin. He didn't start particularly well this year, and people have gone in quite early on Jeremy Chin in drafts, but to be fair, he's finished pretty well, and people should be pretty happy with what he's given them. And up front, Big Derek Brown, obviously he's not the top man DL wise, but he had 16 points this week, and he got to Matt Ryan twice. But in games where he's up against a weak front, Derek Brown is an absolute monster. So yeah, flipping it over to the Bills, and it was a good game. It was a good game, the Bucs game, and it was a hard fought out game, and they took it to the wire. But unfortunately for Bills fans, they just come up short. Last week, we predicted it. We predicted that IDP-wise, the linebackers will score well. Because we know that they have got a shite run defense, the Bills. I think I posted at one point during the night, my nan could score a rushing touchdown against them at the moment. It just infuriates me. It infuriates me, the Jonathan Taylor thing where they just let him score touchdown after touchdown, didn't seem to make any adjustments. Whether they couldn't, then that's fine, but that is kind of embarrassing that they couldn't sort of at least slow him down slightly, but they didn't, and straight away Fournette burst through them this week, and they kept gaining those yards that they just didn't want to give away. And for me, that was where the Bucs, I know it went to the wire, but Josh Allen had to run his ass off to do it. So I expect Carolina to do this, to use the same tactic, because anybody that is playing the Bills will be run the ball first. But luckily for the Bills, there is no CMC, who would have absolutely loved this matchup. But so that is quite incredible, really. That that actually they're going to completely get away with it. But the big difference this week is the quality of the QB that the Bills are facing. Obviously, last week it was Tom Brady, and this week it's either Cam Newton, PJ Walker, both of them. Fuck knows what's going on.
None of them.
None of them. I don't. Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. I don't understand the Dynasty pod last Tuesday night. The guys were saying the same thing, that this swapping out of the QB. Yeah, I'm not sure I get it. No, Rich said it was something to do with 2-minute offense, that Cam doesn't know it, but then PJ Walker come in. PJ Walker come in and then threw a pick, and you're like, oh yeah, he's got it nailed, that fella. Anyway, but there you go. But yeah, so with that in mind, you got to bring so last week against the Bucs, You know about Brady. You know Brady's going to be, well, it's just going to be Tom Brady. So this week is it's a different story. So you've got to bring in their secondary and their pass rush. This kind of goes kind of hand in hand. I'm not massive on the Bills pass rush, so probably concentrate on their secondary if you're looking at players. And there's a fair few to pick from. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, usual fellow that you've got there. But just looking at the Bills IDP wise in week 14, we had Matt Milano had a cracking week. He top scored 23 points, which included 9 tackles, tackle for a loss, and a sack. And the other linebacker came second. That was Tremaine Edmonds. He had 12 tackles and pass defending, and he got 18 points. Third was Jordan Poyer, I mentioned. He put in 10 tackles, quality, and he contributed 16.5 points. I like the Bills D in this one, and it's a nailed-on victory for them against a confused and banged-up Packers team. So I've just seen that Sam Darnold might actually be playing. Oh, fuck knows, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. But does that make a difference? Probably not. I don't know. But there we go. But yeah, Bills all day, and I do see some IDP defense, some big defensive points potentially from the Bills. There we go.
Yeah. I don't know. We were really keen on this Panthers team coming into the season, and to say the wheels have come off, well, and like you said, the QB thing is just it's a train wreck at the moment. I can't. I mean, Matt Rule's got to be gone soon. I don't think they just look absolutely rudderless at the moment. I'd be all in on the Bills defensive players you've highlighted. The Bills have got to win it, really, because there is a. I mean, I think it is one of the more nailed on wins this week because the Panthers are just so poor at the moment. I mean, what are they, sort of 7-6 at the moment? So
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
no, they're worse than that, aren't they? 6 and 7, so it's 6 and 8.
So, but yeah. Anyway, so Bills win. It's a fairly easy call.
Just as a side note for that something that I didn't mention was dynasty wise, just having one eye on the future. Have a look at like rookies, Greg Rousseau, if they're around. If you got a chance to stash them, especially if you haven't made the playoffs, have a little gander and see if you can stash some people if you're on dynasty IDP wise. And corner JC Horn, who we know has missed. It's been a shame he's missed out this year, but he's somebody that if he is around, I'd put him in because obviously second season I feel they've missed him. I think he's going to be a big part of their defense.
Yeah, no, that's sound. That's okay.
So I was Houston at Jacksonville, but that's one of the ones I will skip.
I can't imagine why. Why are we not covering the Texans Jags?
I don't know. But the thing is what makes me laugh about some of this. That could be some big points. Like, you've got the Josh Allen there.
Yeah.
Play him.
Yeah.
But rest of them, maybe the linebackers from the Texans, you know what they're like. They love racking up points, but not talking about him. It's boring.
No, that's fair enough. Right.
Jets at Miami. Go on, Bren.
Right. To the Jets at the Dolphins. Jets coming off the back of 30-9 loss to the Saints. But in light of recent news, I'm going to mention it again, I'd have a serious look this week at some of these Jets IDP players. I've just double checked before we've come on just to make sure it's the state of play, but it is, it's very fluid at the moment, as Nath mentioned in the intro. But COVID has ripped into this Miami running game. I mean, it's ripped it to pieces. So at the moment, we've got Gaskin, Ahmed, and Philip Lindsay all on the COVID list.
Yeah.
And then if we were really stretching, Patrick Laird and Malcolm Brown are on IR. So at the moment, you've got 5 Miami running backs in various states of just ineligibility. So I'd be looking at picking up, if you can, I'd be looking at the secondary for the Jets, cornerback Bryce Hall. He's been a bit hit and miss this season, but Tua will have to throw it this weekend unless circumstances change. Also, because of the way Tua plays, a lot of shorter. His pass accuracy has been brilliant for the last 4 weeks when he's played. Really sort of top notch. But the accuracy is good because there's lots of short conservative throws. So, the two main linebackers for the Jets have got to be a factor in this matchup. For me, CJ Mosley is top scored again on Sunday with 22.5 points, all tackles. But he'll be rostered, but you play him in this game because he will be busy in the middle of that field, I would imagine, with the way Miami are going to have to sort of match up. You should, however, be able to pick up Quincy Williams. He's got 82 tackles now on the year. He's racked up 81 fantasy points in the last 4 weeks. I think this is if you can pick him up, I think this is and you're short on a linebacker. This would be an ideal week to pick up the likes of a Quincy Williams. The Dolphins coming in off the back of the bye, so there's no stats from the previous Sunday. On a positive note for the Dolphins, I do like the matchup against Zach Wilson. I said to Nath earlier, he looked again at the weekend like a bit of a deer in the headlights. I know he had a couple of receivers out, but it's late in the season and the game still hasn't slowed down for this kid. He's still, not reading. He's just trying to force it. It's all too quick for him at the moment. All looks a bit panicked, a bit rushed. So Wilson, on top of that, he took another 3 sacks on Sunday. That puts him at 28 for the season. So Q Jalen Phillips at DL. If you've got him after the 2 monster weeks before the bye, then I think this would be an ideal matchup for the likes of Jalen Phillips. On the waivers at DL, I do like Christian Wilkins in the matchup this week. 57 tackles and 3 sacks on the season. So again, he can be a bit hit and miss, but it's, if they can get in and sort of rattle Zach, then he could score reasonably well this week. Linebacker, same old. Jerome Baker. No one else really gets a look in. Landon Roberts might get the odd sack, but it's Jerome Baker or nothing. He's Miami's top tackler, but only just at the moment over safety Eric Rowe, who is readily available on waivers, and he's a solid but unspectacular DB pickup. But at DB this week, I think a lot of people, and I know my illustrious colleague there has already mentioned it before we came on, but I'd be taking a punt on Xavier Howard this week to add to his pick count this week. He is out on some waivers because he's not had anything like the season he had last year, but he's still ranked number 3 corner on Sleeper at the moment, and he has scored consistently, since week 10. So there's quite a bit to sort of choose from in this game, but I would seriously be looking at the cornerback I've highlighted for the Jets. But in terms of the game summary, I mean, this is a big game for Miami. I mean, they've got a chance to go 7-7 and stay in the hunts. I mentioned that it's a big game for the Bills as well, but I think they'll win that one. But it's going to need a big day from this Miami defense because they are so banged up on the run game. Dolphins win, I hope, but I've got a rather twitchy feeling going into this matchup this Sunday. I've got a horrible feeling it might go a little bit pear-shaped. So I've got to lean with Miami, but we'll see. But there's plenty to be looking at from an IDP perspective in the matchup, I think.
Certainly is, mate. It certainly is. Like I said to you, yeah, it is an interesting one for me. Like I said to you about that kind of boom or bust idea we were talking about before. The start of potentially your man, Xavier Howard. It could be that kind of game, This could be a winner. This could be the idea of taking, a tackle floor DB, your Kenny Moore or whoever. I said it because that was the player that I'd actually looking at dropping potentially for this one, and going for that big play because the matchup and just because it does, that's that performance where you're looking at a couple of picks or not even a couple of picks, just that big play and. Yeah, it could be there. It looks particularly tasty for me anyway, but there we go. So I have got Dallas at the Giants next. So let's go Let's go Cowboys first. Why not? Let's go big. Go big or go home. Right. As Murph and Dan talked about on the flagship show on Monday night, the Cowboys D continues to be absolutely fantastic and is outplaying their offense. Who could have called it at the start of the season? None of us. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn has been brilliant, and in Micah Parsons, they have something special. I mean, I was high on Micah before the start of the season, but not this high. I mean, come on, it's getting silly, isn't it? It's getting to the point of where you go. People are starting to compare him to, you know, Thomas Taylor and people like that. You're like, hang on a minute, but you look at it and go. So talking about that, I'm interested in the off season and seeing what people are going to be willing to pay and selling for. And I think it's going to be a hot topic of conversation about him, and there's going to be questions such as, is he going to get better and improve? If he is going to next season, what is his score going to be? Because where are you setting it? I mean, he's top scoring now. So what are we saying? Or do we feel that teams are going to double up on him, meaning that a possible year 2 downturn? That's what the conversation. But anyway, we'll leave that for the off season. But it's going to be fun talking about that. And we're going to do. I want to do that with a few of the rookies, and a few players. Just generally talk about what we think their actual outlook's going to be, but it's very interesting with Parsons. Anyway, so going into week 14, Dallas beat Washington, mainly due to their defensive performance and their turnovers. Micah did top score with 2 more sacks and a massive forced fumble. It gave Dorrance Armstrong his IDP touchdown. And yeah, just set the game really. I've also got to mention Randy Gregory. He had 2 massive plays during the game, a sack and a forced fumble, and then a great interception, which changed the course of it. Partly all of this, I think it just helps that DeMarcus Lawrence is back. It adds to the impressive pass rush, but it adds another leader on the pitch. And that's what Dallas, especially last season, were absolutely crying out for leaders, defensive leaders. And now they seem to have bags of them. And yeah, they're causing absolute havoc. So good luck, Daniel Jones or Mike Glennon, whoever the hell it's going to be at QB. But God, you're going to need it, I think. So because if it comes again, that Dallas pass rush, it's not like it did last week. Like poor old Taylor Heineke. But yeah, I think it's going to be big. But anyway, going over to the Giants. They lost the Chargers in week 14. Defensively, they were pretty poor. The only decent performance was really coming from the young pass rusher Dexter Lawrence. He got to Herbert 3 times. He got himself a sack, and he got himself some decent tackle numbers. Rookie Aziz Ojulari got himself a sack as well. So he's worth a mention. But that was pretty much it from the Giants. It just didn't really click for them, and they got ripped apart in stages of the game. But Washington's top IDPs scored really well against Dallas' offense. And this is the weird thing with Dallas at the moment. Offensively, they're a bit risky. They can't quite get it together. They don't quite click. So there's hope for the Giants in this one. So with that in mind, I probably wouldn't swerve any of the IDPs in this matchup. Any of the IDP starters, because, you can kind of make a case for them all. Secondary at the Giants, secondary at Dallas, pass rush from both teams kind of in play. Linebackers, yeah. But yeah, so for me, yeah, I've got Dallas as a win, but I've got high scoring IDP points on this game. This is the one. My prediction actually is for Parsons and Co to get over 4 sacks in the game. But yeah, looking forward to watching it. Can't wait. Not my top matchup game of the week, but my top, my top sort of IDP one, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point actually. I mean, I think I mentioned it last week when we were talking about the Cowboys off the back of an interview that Zeke had given about this running game not clicking, him feeling that he needed to do more. Same for Pollard, and I think that we saw that again at the weekend. Like you said, they are not solely, by any stretch. They're not solely reliant on that defense. They've still got Dak, they've still got weapons, but they've got to sort this ground game out for me.
Yeah.
They've got to get
Is
something.
Corey Clement now? Corey Clement seems to be a backup running back because is Pollard out or is Pollard? I don't know.
He didn't. I don't think he really featured at all at the weekend, did he?
So I don't think he was fit, Pollard. So I think Pollard was out. So I think it was Corey Clement as the backup. But he's done all right.
Yeah, but if they can get Pollard back fit and get back to that, they had a few weeks earlier in the season where they were using Zeke and Pollard, and that 1-2 sort of punch combo was working really, really well. They were really causing teams a lot of problems. I still think they've got too much for the Giants. I mean, I heard on one of the pods this morning that judges said that Daniel Jones is going to go and see some other neck specialist. Apparently, I think you can read into that he's probably done for the season. If they're not happy with the way this neck injury is at the moment and 4 wins on the season, they're probably just going to roll over and rest him now until the off season. Why take the risk? That's assuming they're going to go with Daniel Jones again next season. Who knows? Cowboys win the game. But yeah, I think it could be.
IDP wise, it's interesting. Because you're just about to skip the Washington Philly game, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, just touching on some of the Washington players, because that's cool, but like Landon Collins was fourth top scorer last week. Cole Holcomb was 12th overall. And then we had Jonathan Allen at 30th. So I mean, you had 3 seriously top scorers over 20 points in that Washington defense, and that's interesting for what the Giants have got to take from it, because they've got something there. The Giants, they're not a poor defense. Well, as a unit, as a whole, okay, they're missing some people at linebackers. Obviously, Martinez is out, but secondary's good. Up front's not bad, and you look at it and go, yeah, there's some points to be had here for them.
Yeah, the Giants' D has definitely looked better, I would say, within the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks. I noticed it, obviously, watching the game against Miami, and they'll make it hard work for a lot of teams.
I mean, they were really poor last week. But I just think it might have been a bit of an off week, but they've got to look at it. There's some serious chance here, I think, for some points, and they're going to have to play well defensively. Because they won't, I think they're going to struggle scoring consistently and not turning the ball over against this Dallas D.
Yeah, no, it's and I mean, Nath makes a valid point about Washington, and I was a little bit torn as to whether to pick it as one to gloss over a little bit. The main reason I did it, I still
we
do
know
like
the top
Washington
players.
defense. Yeah. So again, Nathan's touched on sort of the 3 you can probably highlight. The reason I've skipped it was primarily because of Philly. I've been back and forth with Philly all season, and they're just they're so hit and miss.
Yeah.
And see, you want a safe pick, see a TJ Edwards, or that's kind of where I'd be at. Looking at sort of that sort of linebacker position. Nothing else really in that Philly team that I'd be rolling the dice on in this matchup. And the Washington offense,
not on week 15.
No, and the Washington offense, it's a bit like watching a Sherman tank. They will sort of grind away at it. They will use the tight ends quite heavily, as we've touched on. So, yeah, there are some safe IDP bets there, more so from the Washington perspective. Philly, a bit like I've said with the Browns, just a little too erratic. When the D's good, as it has been too infrequently, but you're rolling the dice a little bit with the Eagles, I think.
We have got excited about him a few times, haven't we?
Yeah, and then they've blown up the following week. So what can you do? So yeah, I am going to gloss over that. So do you want me to go to the Bengals Broncos game?
So you have Washington, Philly, you skip that. I had Tennessee at Pittsburgh. I'm going to skip that one. I just mentioned the Steelers' run defense was absolutely awful against the Vikings. So yeah, start the Titans running backs. I fancy Titans win on the road, but that's kind of all I'm going to really go for on it. It's a funny kind of game for me. It's not a particularly great one. Big Ben did get sacked 5 times though, so Harold Landry is a start for me in all formats. Absolutely lock on start. Yeah,
I think you're right. It's probably, maybe with the exception of the Texans Jags game, although as we said that could be fun, not very technically good, but it could be fun. This is about the only game on the list that I'm looking at going, I'm not really invested in it. I can, it's just can't get too sort of enthused about that, to be honest. So, okay, right, moving on to one I am looking forward to actually, and this is, I think for me, this is, Nate's already picked his, I think, with the IDP matchups. This is the one for me. Bengals at the Broncos. This is the one I'm highlighting as my sort of IDP game of the week. So Broncos week 14, beat up a bit on the Lions. Bengals lost in overtime to the Niners to floss for them, 26-23. Excuse me. But so the result leaves both teams 7-6 and still very much in the mix in their respective divisions. Looking at the top week 14 performers, starting with the Bengals, DB Von Bell had one of his sort of best weekends of the season with 21.5 points. And then at DL, we had Larry Okunjobi with 19.5 points, including a sack. And at the DB position, we had Chidobe Awuzie on 18 points. Moving over to the Broncos, at DL, Dramont Jones was someone, I think I mentioned him last week. And he had just a monster week 14, 31.5 points, including 2 sacks. DB Justin Simmons had another decent game, 17.5 points, including another pick. That takes him to 5 on the season. The matchup, as I've just said, I think this is a great IDP matchup. First of all, you've got Teddy Bridgewater for the Broncos, been sacked 29 times this season. And against this sack-happy Bengals defense, they could have a bit of a day of it. So far, sack numbers for the Bengals this season, you've got Trey Hendrickson, 12.5, Sam Hubbard, 7.5. Then you've got Larry Okunjobi and BJ Hill, who's someone not really mentioned, but they both got 5.5 apiece on the season.
That's the full front. That's the full front.
That is it. Yeah,
that is it.
That's pretty much the standard front four, isn't it? They're the ones that see all the snaps. So the 2 tackles I've just mentioned are both readily available. Okunjobi, I mentioned already, but BJ Hill had 15.5 points on Sunday as well. So he's coming off the back of a decent performance. Moving back from the DL, top tackle Logan Wilson may make a return, but I think that's one of those day-to-day things. Don't be surprised if they do save him, actually, because they've got a crunch week 16 game against the Ravens. So if you do have Wilson on your roster, I would be keeping an eye on it. Then you've got the safeties for the Bengals, Von Bell, Jesse Bates, who sits second and third on the Bengals tackle chart. So again, they're both solid sort of DB starts if you've got them. Moving over to the Broncos, I think you've got to be starting Pat Surtain at DB this week, or if not, if you've got him, safety Justin Simmons. I've banged on about the Broncos secondary a bit this season. Well, this is the game they've been waiting for. I mean, Surtain has 4 picks this season. Simmons has 5. Joe Burrow currently sits top of the pick chart with Trevor Lawrence. And I would probably bet vital parts of my anatomy he adds to that on Sunday against his secondary. I'm also going to recommend taking a waiver punt this week on DL Dramont Jones, who I mentioned as one of the standouts for last week, and I did mention him last week as well, coming into the week 14. Not just because of his 31.5 points on Sunday, but he's currently the Broncos sack leader as well on 5.5 for the season. And not only is Joe Burrow currently top of the pick list, he is now head and shoulders number 1 above everyone else on the sack chart 41 times. Burrow's been stuffed now. So, it's a good week, I would say, against this in this matchup to slot Jones in if you do need someone at DL. So lots to sort of take in. I think there are definitely some IDP sort of pickups, and there are some tried and tested players, if you've got them on the roster, I think this is a good matchup for them. Because I think there will be sacks in the game. I think there will be picks in the game. In terms of the game summary, I seem to keep picking the Bengals, and every time I do, they let me down. So I'm actually going to go with the Broncos this weekend. But I just think for me, and I'm not doing it just out of petulance, I just think at the moment, Bengals just turn the ball over way too cheaply and too frequently of late. And that would be a big concern to me, because they're still very much in that hunt in the division. But I think the Broncos secondary come to play this weekend, and I think Burrow might struggle.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I've been watching Denver quite closely, and they're quite regimental in what they do and the way they go about their work. And it's like with Cincinnati, it's just like you said with Burrow, it's very much boom or bust kind of mentality with him constantly, where it's either brilliant play or damn right ugly. It's none of that middle ground kind of stuff. I know people say Mixon's a bit banged up and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, to me, this is well, we'll wait and see. But yeah, if Denver play the way they have been, I feel that they should have that one in the bag. So for me, I've got Atlanta at the 49ers. So Falcons at the Niners. I'll go Falcons first. As I mentioned, watched that bloody game twice. Good win against the Panthers in week 14. I was impressed by the defensive adjustments by Atlanta after the early Cam Newton touchdown. I think they made them quickly. Then they started to get some pressure on Cam. They stopped the run, and then the linebacker Mikael Walker, he picked Cam off for a defensive TD, and it sort of changed it after that. Walker didn't, but Mikael Walker he doesn't play a lot of snaps, and he's not really fantasy relevant. So somebody I wouldn't talk about, but somebody I would is AJ Tyrell, and I'm a big fan of his. He is. When they picked him up, it was a bit of an eye opener when they took him. They took him quite high up in the draft. Not last season before. And when Tyrell was picked, it did raise a few eyebrows, and mainly because he's quite an aggressive DB. We were worried about his pass interference calls and stuff like that going against him, but he seems to be getting better. He's just a decent corner, really. He's got decent coverage ability, and he's one of those players that he can, when he goes off, I think he can rack up some points. So yeah, where was I? It was poor quarterback play though that really. Sorry, I missed a bit there. Where was I? AJ Tyrell. AJ Tyrell. Yeah, when because AJ Tyrell picked off PJ Walker before halftime, and he put the Falcons 10 points up. It put the Falcons 10 points up at the half, and it was poor QB play that really contributed to the actual win for the Falcons in week 14. Again, the Panthers were up to all sorts, and they were, but this week the Falcons will face a different test, definitely. The top IDP point scorers in week 14 for the Falcons: Dante Fowler, who's currently questionable though, he scored 22.5 points, which included 3 tackles for a loss and a sack. And rookie DB AJ Tyrell, who got 3 pass defended and an interception. And those two particularly are 2 guys that I do like. So if the Falcons matchup is good, they are 2 guys that I would definitely look at. Even though they're not been massive scorers this year, they can have good weeks. Over to the Niners. Now the Niners game, I absolutely love the aggression and intensity from the 49ers D from the get-go. They were all over the Bengals early on. Rattled, like you've just mentioned about Joe Burrow. They rattled him. They got to him. They caused trouble. And in linebacker, Al Shahir, they have potentially a new star alongside Fred Warner. I just laughed at my notes because I just remembered. If anybody watch that game again if you get a chance, bang it on Game Pass, watch the first half of it. The Bengals special teams had an absolute dreadful first half. They cocked up absolutely everything, and it contributed massively to the results. But I like the 49ers, both sides of the ball actually in this game, and it's good to watch for the neutral. It was good to watch for the neutral last week as well. 26-23 overtime win was particularly great. Points wise for the 49ers in week 14, it looked like this, and they were big. I mean, 35 points for Azeez Al-Shahir at linebacker. He included 11 tackles, and he was absolutely everywhere. 24 points from star defensive end Nick Bosa, and 19.5 points from Quinn Williams, who I bang on about pretty much every week because I really like him. But secondary wise, I like Jimmy Ward. I like Tart as well. He's crazy. Jaquez Tart. He comes bombing in from all angles, and he's going to injure somebody soon. But yeah, as an IDP player, Quinn Williams is the man that I would pick up out of them. So there you go. Where am I did I put anything stats wise? I like and fancy the Niners in this one, especially if Elijah Mitchell is back at running back. Look for Ayuk against Ayuk versus AJ Tyrell as a matchup. I think that'll be decent to watch. I don't see massive sack points, but maybe Nick Bosa get into Matt Ryan. Bosa's he's still racking up the sacks, mind quietly, just doing his business like he would do. But it's a good game. I'm looking forward to that one. So there you go.
Yeah. I think the Falcons deserve a bit of a shout, simply because we've been. I know a lot of they have come in for a lot of criticism, but just looking at it of late, they're still. Maybe this says a bit more about the NFC sort of wild card hunt. I don't know, but they are still in the hunt. And when you consider what they've got to play with at the moment, it's actually you've got to give them a bit of credit, I think, because obviously they lost Jones, they've got the Ridley situation. They're having to make do with, the Swiss Army knife, old Cordroy Patterson, and what else? I mean, Gage, and that's how are they still in this hunt? And okay, I know a lot of that comes down to, the old gunslinger, Mr. Ryan, but and the D's not been terrible of late. So yeah, I just thought they deserved a bit of a mention, because they have been sort of, they're still there or thereabouts.
They're a weird
somehow.
I agree. They're a weird one, the Falcons. You wouldn't want to play them.
No, but you just think, is it? Yeah, but then if they get into the playoffs, is it? Because we saw some teams get into the playoffs last. I mean, Washington, who went in and you went okay, and they came good, for a game or so in the postseason. But you've seen teams like the Bears sort of limp into the playoffs of late and gone, oh, they're just taking up a bit of space. But yeah, I think I'd rather see the Falcons than last year's Bears in the playoffs by any stretch. But but yeah, I think it could be one of the real fun games this weekend, actually. So yeah, looking forward to it. Right, where are we in the running order, mate? After I've wumbled on about the Falcons,
you've got Green Bay at Baltimore, and you're going to skip it.
Yeah, just very, and I will keep it brief. The Packers, you've got your sort of tried and tested players for Green Bay. I've said it before. I've tried to make a case for the Ravens from an IDP perspective, and I just can't do it anymore, because I think the team as a whole have got some big problems, and it's not just on defense either. I think the offense have got some issues as well, and they've got a really tough run-in. I think they've got I know they've got the Rams and a couple of other sort of tough games in the last sort of. Certainly the last three fixtures. So I just don't see a great deal of value. Haven't done all season. The problem used to, I said it a couple of weeks ago, the Ravens D seems to be just good enough to get Jackson on the field and get that offense going, but that offense isn't going at the moment. So I think this could be not a cakewalk, but I think the Packers win this. So yeah, I've struggled to find anything really to talk about too much from an IDP perspective in the matchup.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us?
So I'm skipping one, and probably a shocker. The one I'm skipping is Seattle at the Rams. I will mention Aaron Donald had an absolute stormer of a week. Ernest Jones, rookie linebacker, playing really well. Seems to have got the main job, and really like him. Seattle, we kind of pretty much know the big names there, so I'm not going to go on too much about that. But as for a matchup, it's got to be the Rams, and yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one to call that kind of game, because obviously Russell Wilson might do something. If he does do something, then I still think the Rams are going to be too strong, and still will be able to deal with it. It's going to be interesting. The running game from Seattle. Talking offensively, shouldn't be really, but there we go. But yeah, Rashard Penny, if he's got the job, then let's see how he goes. But against the Rams, it's going to be tough anyway. If he has got the job, it'll be like, can you wait a week? There you go. So yeah, go on, Brian. You've got Saints at Tampa.
Yeah, my last one for this week. So Saints at the Bucks. So both teams coming off a win on Sunday. Saints over the Jets. Bucks with that big overtime win over the Bills. Bucks are now 10-3, and you might argue in another week that they'd be sort of relaxing, but I don't see it against not against a divisional rival. Bucks top performers against the Bills, no great surprises. It's the usual suspects. Devon White top scored 27 points, Shaq Barrett 20.5, Levante David 13, same for Antoine Winfield. Looking at the Saints, their top scorer Quan Alexander. I don't think we've mentioned a huge amount this season. 21 points, couple of sacks, so one of his better games on the season. Demario Davis, who's someone I have mentioned before, had 18 points. Carl Granderson, who I definitely haven't mentioned before, had a reasonable game as well. It can't have been that good. I've forgotten to write the numbers down. I know he was the third highest scorer for him in the season now.
Yeah.
The game. So anyway, but the matchup could be entertaining. I expect it could be quite an attritional game, to be honest. I can see both teams sort of looking to run the ball. The Bucks, partly because of the form Lenny Fournette's in at the moment. I think the Saints will run the ball because Kamara's fit again, and their quarterback cannot throw very well to his own team.
Good at running, though. So, he's good at running.
Oh yeah, no, his points are good. His points are very good. That's why I've stuck him in as one of my flex in one of my
like
leagues. But also, I mean, whilst I regard these as possibly two of the best run defenses in the league, I think both teams could look at their current sort of the current defensive form of the opposition going into this. The Bucks are ranked third against the rush on the season, averaging just over 91 yards. But their last three, that has dropped quite significantly to over 130 yards on the game. Saints similarly, but not as bad. They're still ranked sixth against the run, averaging 95 on the season, but that's dropped to over 110 in the last three games as well. So if it's panning out to be sort of a tough ground heavy divisional clash, then I'd be playing safe, and I'm starting to look at the tackle numbers on the players involved. So for the Saints, that means linebacker Demario Davis, safeties Malcolm Jenkins, Marcus Williams. You're unlikely to find Davis and Jenkins on too many waivers, but I did find Marcus Williams on a couple, so he might be worth a look. I did mention him before, and we haven't mentioned him much this season. Quan Alexander is floating around on a few if you've got a hole to plug at LB. To be fair, he has racked up nearly 80 fantasy points since week 10. So his numbers have been trending, well of late. moving over to the Bucks, it's the linebackers. Unsurprisingly, Devon White, 110 tackles on the season. Levante Davis, he's a bit behind him, 86 tackles on the season, but he's played 2 fewer games, to be fair. And I think I would include, I've been on and off with him a bit this season, but I would include sack leader Shaq Barrett. He's picked up sort of 9 sacks in 13 games. And Antoine Winfield, safety, his tackle numbers are still, he's still one of the best tackling safeties in the league. So, that's assumed that it pans out. I mean, the Bucks have got the option to throw it, but I think I can see this being, like I say, a bit of a slugfest, a bit of a battle. So I'd be looking at that, that sort of the middle of the park, the linebackers. Game summary, I think the Bucks win it. I think they're just going through the gears at the moment. I get that. I think everyone gets that feeling with the Bucks at the moment. Preparation for the postseason. And as I say, if the ground game, isn't quite working, if the Saints can shut Fournette down, then, the Bucks have got far better passing options with Brady and co. So yeah, I'll take the Bucks to win the game.
Yeah, same here. It's just on.
But it should be a good game.
I think it'll be a good game as well. I agree. I think it will be. Yeah. But I just feel Tampa just destroy them, but with just the weapons that they've got, and they just seem to all be hitting form. Mike Evans scored a cracking touchdown. Godwin's going off points wise this moment in time, and like you said, Fournette's doing the business. So it all plays into it. But you know what this season's like? Probably be the Saints win. But there we go. Anyway, right, for me, final Monday night. Oh, I've lost my page, but it doesn't matter because I know all about this one.
They've stuck you a lot on prime time again.
Oh, that's not a good thing for us. But anyway. Okay, so getting a bit of feedback again on the bloody microphone, but I'll just crack on anyway. Right, Vikings for us, big win, big defensive performance. Great for the neutral. Again, shit for my heart. It's just the defense have made some massive plays in that one. Eric Kendricks at the heart of it, 11 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. And it was 1 of 5 sacks that Big Ben got on Thursday night. Harrison Smith, he had himself a night. He got a sack. And Anthony Barr is back and tackling well. Barr is the one that I want to highlight. And he's probably available. For me, he's a good one in this matchup. This is absolutely cracking for him because you're talking the Bears and you're talking heavy dose of running the ball. And this is where it is. So yeah, Anthony Barr, I'm expecting to be there or thereabouts as the top scorer. Obviously, you've got Kendricks in front of him, but yeah, he's in the mix. I'm not interested in the Vikings corners or the defensive line here, but as I said, have a look at Barr. Yeah, as I said, it's a big win, big performance. I think there's a huge change that's happened. Big Michael Pierce, you can't miss him. If you watch the Vikings game back, yeah, massive guy up front for us, and he is making a bit of a difference straight away. We missed him last year. He spent the whole of the season on IR after we signed him from the Ravens. Yeah, and straight away he actually got himself a sack. I think Tomlinson might have as well. Alongside, no, it wasn't Tomlinson. It was the other chap. But yeah, it's yeah, the Vikings are defensively. I heard somebody actually asked me the question earlier about playing Justin Fields this week because the matchup looked particularly good against the Vikings. A couple of weeks ago, I'd probably said, yeah. I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure. I thought we looked quite aggressive up front and quite, I don't know, just in tune. Put it that way. Just something just felt right. As a fan, when you're watching your team, you go, we look better. We feel better. It feels better. Feels like everybody's rushing it like at the same time. the plays are ready, everybody's at the line at the right time, all that kind of stuff, where you start to get in sync, and that's what it felt like. So, well, we'll wait and see. It probably all go tits up this week, but there we go. Anyway, over to the Bears. It was a tough loss to the Packers in week 14, but there was positive things to take from an IDP perspective, especially. We've been saying it for the past few weeks. It's not just Roquan Smith. We should be talking about Robert Quinn. He's had himself pretty much 4 great weeks on the bounce, and he's available. You've got to snap him up. I doubt he is, to be honest, but 7.5 sacks in the last week, in the last 4 weeks, and he's averaging over 3 tackles a game. Means that that sort of safe-ish floor's kind of there. You can get out of him, and obviously if he gets a couple of sacks as well, boom, you're in the mix. And it's a good matchup this week against Kirk, so expect a decent score. He's got 14 sacks on the season. Where are we? So Eddie Jackson at safety. He's had at least 8 tackles in his past 3 games, so he's a safe option plugging a gap at DB. And RT Burns at DB is one to keep an eye on. He's an outside pick, but in really real deeper leads. But for me, it's all about Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, and Eddie Jackson when you talk about the Bears. Over to the matchup itself. I don't like the matchup for us. I never do when we play the Bears very much. The Bears loss to Rodgers and the Packers will be, it hurt and it'll be the perfect bounce back game for them. But like I said, I felt something clicks up defensively up front, so maybe. But Vikings are massively inconsistent. That's what we've got to look at. And Fields played quite well. It was good to see. I've got Fields in quite a few leagues. So I quite liked that side of it, the rushing side of things from him. It's impressive to see. I mean, if it clicks and he's got a decent O-line in front of him, I think that the guy's potentially a top 4, top 5 QB. Top 12 QB, not top 4, top 5. Come on, but definitely a QB1 to consider for next year. The Bears got nothing to lose. Oh, sorry, I'm sort of struggling on what I've written down, but I'm gonna go Vikings. As I like it up front, that's the thing. IDP wise, I like the matchup, and I feel there's points to be had at linebacker. I fancy the big points. As running the ball from both teams are going to be priority. And the Jefferson workload will probably play into the tackle floor for Eddie Jackson, as I mentioned earlier. I expect it to be a tight affair, yeah, and just us. But I think it's going to be tight. I'm not surprisingly. Who would have thought? Fucking tight game the Vikings are in.
First of the season for him. I do agree. I am gonna plumb for the Vikings. And I think there might just be, like you say, things do seem to be sort of coming together. And maybe it's just been a case of there have been that many sort of tight games certainly in the first sort of 3 or 4 weeks, games they didn't really deserve to lose, but they did. Very tight overtime affairs and last kicks and stuff like that. I just think maybe things might just sort of click into place just at the right time. They've left it late, but as you say, tough matchup. But I think off the back of last week, I think they didn't come into it with a lot of positives. So
I think if we're against an elite QB that can throw the ball, say Justin Herbert, I don't think we stand a chance at this moment in time because I just don't think the corners, the secondary is good enough. But against Justin Fields, I don't think that's the area of the field where he's at his strongest. So you're talking about keeping it tight through the middle, and I think we're pretty good in that area. So if they can't do that. Can the Bears score enough to stop? Because we will score. At the end of the day, that's what we do. Yeah. But I don't know. To be fair, I don't know what we do. Some of the weeks I've looked back and gone, what the... You know what I mean? Prediction-wise, this is crap. yeah, I seem to review us every week, and I hate it. I hate it, and I usually get it wrong. But there we go.
Well, I mean, I hated the first half of the season covering off the Dolphins. The last 7 weeks have been all right, actually, funny enough. But the wheels are going to come off, and I've got an awful feeling about this Jets game. I really do, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's us done for the Week 15 matchups. So good luck in your playoff in toilet bowl matchups, whatever you're in. Remember,
thank you. Yeah.
Remember to have one eye on Week 16 if you're in. If you're in or not in the playoffs and you fancy your chances, keep one eye on the Week 16. Keep one eye on next season as well if you're in dynasty leagues. I'm off to check my lineups for the 100th time, and
yeah, well, I was going to say, but keeping an eye on things. I mean, for God's sake, I'd be looking at that roster every half an hour because it's going to change by the weekend, boys and girls. You can guarantee it.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But yeah, good luck everybody, and you just got to keep plugging away, and good things will happen, and you'll get those ships. Like I said, tune into all the other 5-yard shows, and we will see you next week. And remember, guys, keep rushing.